Somebody call a doctor.
I want a bigger logo. You can't handle a bigger logo.
G'day and welcome to the next episode of the Dr. Branding Podcast. I am your branding Dr. Frank. The surgery is open for another episode. Let's answer our next patient's question, and then from there we're going to diagnose the brand problem and prescribe a solution to do better branding. That's the one. So today the question comes from Tracey from Chicago. Tracey asks, Doctor, I'm scared of putting my face out there for my brand. I'm a service-based business owner, and I keep seeing that you need to create a personal brand that will lead to your business brand. But I hate my photo being taken because I'm no model, and the thought of doing video content too scares me even more. What should I do? Tracey, thank you for the question. Tracey is from Chicago in the US of A. Okay, this is a tough one for many different reasons, for many different people. And I think at one point or another, all of us have this problem or encounter it in some degree, shape or form, different context. It really comes down to the individual and, where this happens. Because if it's in person, if it's behind a camera, behind a microphone, whatever it might be, whenever it might be, this can show up for many different reasons. So I would say the cause of this, and I'm going to start just a little bit deep here because the cause of showing up could be a little bit more deep rooted. And I'm not a clinical physician or a psychologist. So I would say that we could be talking about something that is much more anxiety related and deeper rooted in terms of a mental headspace kind of thing, which I would definitely encourage you engage with a mental health professional or even just your local GP that might help you understand where some anxiety of showing up for people, like just the same as public speaking, getting up in front of an audience can be as daunting as getting behind a camera. There might be something else that might be going on that is holding you back from maybe wanting to do this stuff. Maybe you don't want to do this stuff, and that's okay. You can go into creating a brand or a business without being the face, showing your face of your business. It can definitely be done. But I have a hesitation here, Tracey, that this is something that you want to do. And I think most people will want to do when they get into business is share who they are and their story and their journey and want to engage with their customers. Not all, obviously, but I'm guessing based on the question that this is something you do want to do and you are curious about. But if there is a more deep-rooted issue here, it might be worth seeking some help in that respect. But to diagnose this from a more brand perspective, what we want to do is just treat it at the surface level. Because some of the time, if not most of the time, this might be all it really is. And I would call this a case of Faciabranditis. Or in layman's terms, the fear of being the face of your brand. Now, again, I'll say throughout this, probably everyone has gone through this experience at some point or another. And to me, it might be a case, because I have gone through this myself, is that it might be more linked to the fear of the thought of it rather than actually doing it. So for me, the fear of skydiving or bungee jumping, just the thought of it does not gel very well with me. We want to have something that you can be confident in, the idea of it, as much as doing the thing. When you actually do the thing and you go, well, that wasn't as bad as I thought it might be. So if the hesitation you're caught up of just even the thought of trying it, not actually even trying the thing, it might be something that we need to get past first. But what could also be happening here is a combination of a few things. One of them, in addition to Faciabranditis, is imposter syndrome. Now, imposter syndrome definitely affects many of us, especially creatives like myself. But having fasciabranditis and imposter syndrome mixed in, there's this fear of doubt in yourself, in your capabilities, in comparison to somebody else. That classic quote, comparison is the thief of joy. I think it was an American president or something like that who said that. But that feeling of not being good enough in comparison to others that you might see out there on social media that are just absolutely kicking goals. They get in front of a camera as if they've been doing it for years, or they just have the absolute bare bone confidence in doing that. Just turn the camera on, they're on. And some people are like that. That's just who they might be. And whether or not you're introverted or extroverted, I don't think it really makes a difference. But when you are doubting yourself because you see others doing really well and you think, oh, I could never do a video as good as them, or take a nice photo like they have done, this is doubt. And I have a very good saying about doubt is that if you look at the word doubt and you drop the unnecessary bullshit thoughts, UBT in doubt, all you're left with is do. And so that should be an encouraging word like Nike's just do it, to get out there and do it as they say. The other part that you might also have in terms of what's weighing on your mind is it's just this irrational thought structure of, again, putting the weight on yourself. If you're putting the weight on yourself as the brand owner, especially in this case, Tracey, I can definitely empathize with the feeling of being maybe the be all and end all of your business, the one that people are always going to engage with, and you have to be the face that shows up. I hear you there. It's something that can be a daunting prospect, that you have to be the one that gets the word out there, the message out there for people to be engaged with. It's not, again, not wholly necessary that you do this. But I think in terms of, those feelings that you might have of, sure, you might hate your face, or the way you look in general, or your voice and how you sound. Most of us don't like how we sound, if not how we look. But that is a very common reality. And I feel like we should find some commonality in that dread or that personal feeling we have with ourselves. But there are, in general, of making you the face of your own brand, there are benefits to this, as much as it is the feeling of the weight on your shoulders in that respect, because you might not have a team that you can collaborate with or put this onus on them potentially. But in terms of that idea of creating a personal brand, especially as the founder of a business, you're going to be the person that most likely is the one that customers will engage with, especially as a service-based business. I'm sure in the day-to-day conversations you have with your clients or customers, that you are the one that they are engaging with, and that you build that rapport over time. So you need to maybe have that upfront bit of connection that a customer has with you, so that you are as appealing or just as much the same as you are when engaging with you, so that I guess a client or customer knows what they're going to get out of you. There's that rapport that's built before actually engaging with you, and they've warmed up to the idea or the prospect of actually working with you, no matter what industry you are in as a service-based business owner. And it might be that factor that turns a cold lead into a warmer lead if you're giving them this kind of window into the opportunity of working with you, if you get what I mean. But what I found in terms of the benefit of doing this is the change maybe in yourself. For me, I probably identify as a more introverted person, but that doesn't necessarily mean I have to be quiet and don't want to engage with people. It's more a case of I don't thrive on the energy of others. It takes a lot of energy for me to put myself out there, whereas extroverted people generally thrive on the energy of others around them to really become, what they need to be. So that energy you need to put out potentially as an introvert. takes some confidence. And what I've found from prolongingly doing this in terms of showing up behind a mic or a camera is that it has boosted this level of confidence, not just behind the camera or behind the mic. It's boosted the confidence when engaging with my clients to be able to have, this level of comfortableness. I don't know what the word is there, but just that ease of having a conversation with somebody without having dread or fear of what they think I look like or sound like or whatever. We're trying to be very objective here. And I think that's something that can be very much lent into is the objectiveness of how you show up, then translates into confidence. Because we're not worried about the subjectiveness of how we look and sound. We're just here to get the job done, to run our business better, to do better branding, to do better business, yeah? And how we do that takes time, yeah? It takes time to build up to this. But no matter if you're showing up in events, meetings, content on your social media, this takes time. But over time, you become the draw card, I guess, for your business of what attracts people to your business to then have that further conversation with people, to engage in that respect beyond the logos and colors that you have, any other touch points, because you are, at the end of the day, a service-based business owner. And at the end of the day, I kind of bring it back to this, that you are the one that, in terms of a brand aspect, you are the one that this brand is probably based on as the founder, as the business owner. You understand the business from inside out, what your customers' problems are, how you can solve it best, what it will do for them in terms of the benefits. You know how to hopefully communicate that message to people. You might not have it very clear. That's okay. You can work with people like me. But in order to put your message out there, it might take the person that knows the service, the product best. And that's probably you. Out of everybody in a team, if you have a team, yeah? And your personality and the way you say things and the tone of the brand is generally reflected off the founder. So if you can bring that to life and bring it to the forefront in your brand experience of what attracts people, that might be a really big draw card and a huge benefit to your business. Again, that puts some weight on. I understand that. That's okay. But to show up on camera, I found this just to be an overall boost in understanding what my brand represents, how it shows up, so that if I build a team in the future, which you might be in that same position, that they have the blueprint to work with because they see it day in, day out in the content before becoming part of your team potentially. They do some research, they get to know who you are, Tracey, and go, oh, I like what Tracey's about. I can align with her. I feel a bit like Tracey in terms of how I could deliver this, or I now know how to deliver it, kind of like Tracey in that respect. And then you've got a brand that is more than just you, Tracey. Yeah. But something I haven't really brought up here is, this tolerance, I guess, building this tolerance up. And how do you get to that point of tolerance? Where's the jumping off point to to get there? Yeah. Because, there's many different ways of going about it. And I think I'm going to come back to this in a sec because I've just thought of a couple of other ideas. But there is going to need to be, if you want to do this, there needs to be a jumping off point, and showing up constantly. And this is really part of marketing, in that you need to constantly show up in some way, shape, or form. And generally the easiest way of showing up, instead of just posting an inspirational quote in your brand colors and things like that, is just to take a photo of your face, or you doing something like holding, a mug or a cup of coffee or your laptop, just sitting in your office working away, and that be it. And then you can write something that's of value to your customer in a social media post. And that's all you're doing. You're just showing up, making sure that you are present and staying active and in front of people so they do think of you when needed. They might not need you now. They might need you in a few years maybe, or a few months. Hopefully it's less than those timelines. But it comes back to just making sure that we can show up in as easy a way as possible that you can do sustainably, consistently. That's the goal. So if you can find a medium of showing up, which might not be photos, might not be video, it might be a podcast where you're happy to talk, but not someone see you, or it might be writing, where you've got blog posts, articles, LinkedIn posts, posts on threads, written content, yeah? Now, the thing that came back into my mind before was that, and I've talked to business owners that have gone down this route of thinking in that they want to seem bigger than they are by not showing up, not showing their face that they are the owners of the business. They talk with we's rather than I's, and they don't want to show their photo on their website or in their social media content. They don't want to have them be the focus of the business. They want to grow beyond just them as the founder or founders, and it's not a consideration part of the business. But again, for me, it comes back to that factor of who is going to be engaging with you, and are you going to be the one that they engage with when you are the service-based business owner, the one that is going to be the person that your client engages with first or throughout the whole engagement from start to end. It's just you. Why not show up to begin with? You don't have to, obviously. I'm going to keep saying this several times. You don't have to, but I don't see why not. Why not start building that rapport as early as possible? Because you might even find that somebody does engage with you and sees your content and sees you and everything and just doesn't like you. That's okay. That is really okay. And that's probably a good thing, because sometimes when working within the service-based businesses, there are red flags where personalities don't gel very well. And that can cause a very bad relationship throughout the course of a project, working with a client or with a customer in terms of what you are delivering beyond the service itself. It's that communication level that you might just not gel with that person, or they might not like your vibe, and so you're not their kind of person that they want to work with, and that is okay. That's a good way of filtering out particular people. But to feel bigger than you are, sure, you could. By all means, you could. But I think of even the biggest businesses going, they have faces, they have people that are the ones that are accountable for the success of the business or the trials and tribulations that come along with being a business owner and having that accountability. There's a face to the name. That can build a little bit more trust and a little bit more brand rapport, that a bit more of an emotional connection, which we're trying to do with a brand if there is a face attached to the name of the business. You don't need to share everything about your life. You don't need to share your kids and your family life and all that stuff. I don't do that at all. There's a time and a place for sharing those things, and it doesn't need to be everything. It could be if you want to. It doesn't need to be, though. Now, the last part of what you could do if it's not you, before I get to what you could do here, Tracey, yourself, is that you don't put it on your own shoulders, you put it on someone else's shoulders. And I've alluded to it a little bit here, is that if you do have a team, you can get your team involved and make it a team effort, especially if your brand persona, your personality of your brand is really a nice cocktail mix of all the people that are involved within your business. If you're a small team, a larger team, whatever the sum of all parts can come together as a united voice in your content, in how you show up in whatever respect, can be a great brand builder for you, so that it's not just tied to one person, where that draw card can be potentially of detriment if the client or customer doesn't get you in their service of what you're offering. They get your sales manager or another individual that is in your team, but they don't see you. They might want you though. They want time with you because you are the draw card into your business. So there can be a bit of a downside in that respect. But I think if you don't feel the comfort in showing up all the time, or you don't have the capacity even to show up on time, you have the opportunity of others to show up for you and be a voice to your consumer rather than yourself. And I'll give you another example here is that you can have others other than your team, if it's an ambassador or if it's a content creator or even your own customers, be the voice of your brand. Apple do this very well in terms of creating stories from their customers that have had life-changing experiences with their products, namely the Apple Watch, where they tell the story of how the Apple Watch saved their life in a roundabout way sometimes, but maybe in a very direct way. And it's not Apple's voice, it's not Tim Cook, the CEO, saying how good the Apple Watch is. It has this feature of full detection. It calls loved ones. It calls emergency services. It's really great. You should try it out. It's $4.99. Buy it. It's not that message. It's Susie who's fallen over in the woods. She's broken her leg. Her watch has detected it. It's sent a message to her husband who's alerted emergency services, or both at the same time. Her watch has got GPS inbuilt. Emergency services have found her, and she's lived to tell another day. You know, it's one of those things where somebody else is advocating for the service or product that you offer. And that's where we have testimonials, obviously. So you could do video testimonials to be that face of your brand rather than you advocating for your own service and business. So there's some ideas of what you could see in different ways of putting a face to your brand's name if it's not your own. But Tracey, if you do decide this is worth it for you, worth it for your business, I think it's a very worthwhile investment if you are game and have the time and effort to be able to do it, because it does take time to do this stuff. No word of a lie. It might not cost you money, but your time and effort is likely worth something to you. If not your time and investment in your own business. So it does need to be that investment just as much as paying someone else to do this stuff. So if it is within your comfort zone, I'm going to prescribe the following treatment. Yeah. So I've written down a few notes here based on your question that I got a little bit earlier. And the first one is to take some photos of yourself. First and foremost, if you can set up a camera, put a self timer on, and just stand there and do some interesting poses. Have a bit of fun. Don't take yourself so seriously. I do this and it feels so vain. Don't get me wrong, but just getting comfortable with the process of taking shots of yourself, photos of yourself. Even if you don't end up sharing it, you're just doing it on your own and you might not have anyone else in the room. It's just you. This is that first step that you might be able to take to lower the bridge, lower the walls down of anxiety around this idea of sharing your face, getting on camera, all these things. And you do the same then for video. Okay, so talk to the camera as if you are having a conversation with a customer and just answer a few really frequently asked questions. So if you have a FAQ on your website, answer those questions, without notes or anything like that. Just talk down the lens. Imagine someone's face that a loved one that you feel confident talking with, and just talk to them. Just straight down the barrel, not looking away and all the rest of it. Straight down the barrel and talking to them, giving them an answer to that question that they have, and do that over and over and over until the walls are coming down. Just keep practicing this. It's going to, as I said before, it's going to feel so vain. But go with me on this one, because I think it's really going to build that confidence over time. It's not an overnight thing. Look, it might be overnight and you're just like, yes, I've nailed this. But it's probably going to be a thing that's over time. And you might have found this, really daunting in just doing that exercise. That's okay. But none of these things that you are shooting need to go online, need to be shared with anybody. the expectation of that isn't there. So that takes that little bit of burden or anxiety hopefully away from you, because you know that it's not going to be, the purpose of it isn't for public consumption. Now, this is really just to get confident in seeing yourself, because our day-to-day, we don't see ourselves very often, do we? It might be 1 or 2, 3 times or so that we see ourselves in, say, a mirror, and we catch ourselves in that reflection and go, oh, that's what I look like, yeah? And we this is a funny one, but we probably don't talk back to ourselves in the camera. Some of us might do just to pump us up or whatever, but probably not. We don't generally make a point of talking to ourselves so that we see ourselves talking. It's not something that we encounter every day, whereas others who see us obviously are always seeing how we talk and engage, but we're not used to that. We have probably a bit of a look of how we look and sound, but it's like when you start hearing yourself back, you start seeing yourself, you're like, oh my God, do I really look and sound like that? Or I look terrible here, blah, blah. Whereas somebody else sitting across from you is like, I don't really care. I'm more interested in what you're saying to me and how you're communicating, and that's interesting to me, or funny, or engaging at least. But then when you are ready, when you've done this a little bit and you're starting to get confident with it, you can start sharing. Slowly, steady. And this is the point where I really want to emphasize this, that you're only going to get better. I look back at videos and recordings that I used to do, and even starting out this podcast, watching back the first episode, I was like, oh, I'm a bit rusty here. There wasn't as much energy that I generally bring to my content. And that's just something that's new. When things are new, we're a little bit hesitant, but over time we start building this confidence. You're always going to get better and never worse. 100% believe that. Now, the benefits really are worth it, okay? Turning yourself into a personal brand, whatever that means to you, is a long-term thing. It's something where it's just a case of you bringing you to the forefront so that people know and understand who you are and what you're about and remember you for something. That's really all personal branding is. And I might cover that in another appointment of the Dr. Branding podcast in the future. I most likely will, because personal branding is a very hot topic at the moment for businesses, especially on social media. But just so you know that you don't need to be the face of your business if you don't want to. It's immensely beneficial if you do, but you don't need to be the face. Your team can be, your customers can be. You can pay an influencer a bit of money to be the face and advocate of your services. And the word of many, it's probably going to need to be a combination of all those anyway at some point, not just your own. But it needs to have this nice, this very objective view and voice that you want to put out there. Forget the subjectivity, yeah? We got to get past how we look and how we sound and all the things that come with it. Anxiety, if it's not deep-rooted in some other mental aspect, and it's just that surface level, Faciabranditis, we can follow these steps, Tracey. I think you'll see the benefit over time if you do get into this, and I can see that you're probably looking to do better branding as a result, to have some better business success. I can see the interest there. So again, thank you for your question, Tracey. And for those of you listening, I do hope that helps you too. Now, please take a piece of brand candy on your way out. My free resource guide to do better branding that you can get on your way out at g'dayfrank.com/candy. You can also make an appointment with that same link if you have a brand related ailment that you'd like some help with. And I'll see you at my next appointment in the next episode. Bye everyone. Thanks for listening. The surgery is now closed. The Dr. Branding podcast is hosted by Reagan Frank McCrill, that's me, and for legal reasons I want to be clear that I am not a registered or qualified doctor. The premise for this podcast is that it is a satirical analogy for branding consultancy to help others with their brand success. This podcast is also sponsored by my branding business, G'day Frank. Say g'day today by booking a call with me at g'dayfrank.com.